Han Thompson stared at the small metal disc in his hand, turning it over as it projected a shimmering holographic message. His grandfather's face, older, more weathered, but unmistakably Ta, hovered in the air before him. 8 years had passed since the old man had disappeared on what the family called his space adventure, leaving only a cryptic note about making contact with something beyond Earth. "Happy 25th birthday, grandson," the recording said with Ta's familiar smile. "It's time you received your inheritance. Come to the old observatory on Midnight Hill tonight at 8 p.m. Come alone. I have a gift that will change your life." The message flickered and disappeared. Han sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. His grandfather had always been eccentric, a brilliant physicist who spoke of aliens and interstellar travel long before his mysterious departure. The family had eventually concluded that grief over Han's grandmother had pushed the old man into delusion. Yet here was proof he was alive. Han glanced at his watch. 6:30 p.m. He had just enough time to drive to the abandoned observatory outside the city limits. He grabbed his jacket and keys, wondering if his grandfather had finally returned home, or if this was just another wild goose chase. The old observatory stood on Midnight Hill like a forgotten monument to the stars. Its white dome was now gray with age, and vines climbed its concrete walls. As Han parked his car in the overgrown lot, he noticed something odd. The building's windows glowed with soft blue light. "Grandfather," Han called, pushing open the creaking door. The interior had been transformed. Gone was the dusty equipment he remembered from childhood visits. Instead, sleek metal panels lined the walls, and the central area housed what looked like a small spacecraft, a silver oval about the size of a small car, hovering inches above the floor without any visible means of support. Right on time, came a voice from behind him. Han spun around to find his grandfather standing in a doorway, looking remarkably healthy. Todd wore a strange silver uniform with symbols Han didn't recognize, but his eyes twinkled with the same mischief they always had. "Grandfather, where have you been? Everyone thought you were dead." Han rushed forward, embracing the old man. Todd returned the hug firmly. "I've been making friends, Han. Important friends. For humanity's future. And yours." Han stepped back, taking in his grandfather's appearance. "You haven't aged a day. How is that possible?" "Medical technology beyond Earth's current understanding," Ta said with a wave of his hand. "But that's not important now. Your gift is waiting." He gestured toward a side room. "I've arranged something special, something that will connect our family to the stars forever." Han followed his grandfather through a doorway and stopped short. A young woman stood by a window, gazing up at the stars. But this was no ordinary woman. Her skin was a soft blue shade, and when she turned to face them, Han saw her eyes were large and silver, reflecting light like mirrors. "Han, meet Nari," Ta said proudly. "She's from the Lumen people of the Arcturus system." The woman, Nari, gave a formal bow, placing her hands together. "Earth person Han," she said in perfect but strangely accented English. "Your ancestor has spoken highly of you." Han stared, unable to form words. He had always believed in alien life, but facing proof was overwhelming. Finally, he managed to stammer, "You're not human." "An excellent observation," Neri replied with what might have been a hint of amusement. Tad laughed. "My grandson, always stating the obvious. Neri is here as part of a cultural exchange program I helped establish. I spent these years as an Earth ambassador to the galactic confluence, 17 spacefaring species working together." Han tore his gaze from Nari to look at his grandfather. "You're serious? You've been in space, with aliens, all this time?" "Exactly," Ta confirmed. "Earth isn't quite ready for full disclosure, but the confluence has approved limited contact through family connections. Which brings me to your birthday gift." He placed his hands on Han's shoulders. "Han Thompson, I've arranged for you to be joined with Nari in a cultural exchange marriage. linking our family to the stars. Han's mouth fell open. A what? A marriage, Tay repeated. Well, the Lumen equivalent. It helped strengthen diplomatic ties and you arranged a marriage for me. To someone I just met, who isn't even human. Han's voice rose with each question. Neri cleared her throat. If I may speak, I too was informed of this arrangement only recently. It appears our elders have been traditional in their approach. Han noticed her discomfort matched his own. You didn't choose this either. My family has served as diplomats for generations, Neri explained. This match was presented as my duty to help establish relations with Earth. Ta looked between them, his enthusiasm dimming. I thought you would be pleased, Han. The Lumen are one of the most advanced species in the confluence. Their technology, their knowledge, it's beyond anything humans have imagined. That's not the point, Han said, running a hand through his hair. You can't just give someone a wife as a birthday present. A sudden beeping sound came from a device on Ta's wrist. His expression changed to concern. We don't have much time. I've detected surveillance drones. Earth governments are more aware of extraterrestrial contact than they admit publicly. He rushed to a control panel and pressed several symbols. The building hummed with energy. What's happening? Han asked. I can't stay, Tai explained hurriedly. My presence draws too much attention. Nari's ship is hidden, but she needs to remain on Earth as planned, both for her safety and the exchange program. You're leaving again. Han couldn't believe what he was hearing. Only temporarily. Ta embraced his grandson quickly. Neri will explain everything. The future of human-Lumen relations may depend on you two finding a way to work together. Before Han could protest further, Ta pressed something into his hand, a small crystal device. This will let you contact me in emergencies. Take care of each other. With that, Ta hurried to the small spacecraft. The door slid open silently, and moments later, the craft rose higher, then simply vanished. Han and Neri stood in awkward silence, two strangers from different worlds, apparently now joined in some form of interstellar arranged marriage. So, Han finally said, I guess you're coming home with me. Nari adjusted the silver band on her wrist. It appears we have little choice. Those surveillance drones your grandfather detected will be here soon. Han looked at the alien woman who was supposedly now his wife and sighed. This is not how I expected my birthday to go. Nor I my diplomatic mission. Neri agreed with a small smile that somehow made Han feel a little better about the whole impossible situation. Han's small apartment suddenly felt much smaller with Neri in it. She stood in the center of his living room, examining everything with intense curiosity. Her blue skin seemed to glow faintly in the dim light as she picked up a framed photo of Han's family. These are your blood relations, she asked, studying the image. My parents and sister, Han confirmed, setting down his keys. He couldn't stop staring at her, the way her silver eyes reflected even the smallest light source, the graceful way she moved. They think grandfather died years ago. I don't know how to tell them he's alive, and gave me an alien wife. Nari set the photo down carefully. Among my people, the term would be life partner, not wife, and I am equally uncomfortable with this arrangement. Han ran a hand through his hair. Sorry, this is just a lot to process. Are you hungry? I don't even know what you eat. My biology can process most of your planet's organic matter, Neri said. Though I should avoid your fermented beverages, they would have unfortunate effects on my neural system. Han opened his refrigerator. Leftover pizza, okay. It's all I have until I can go shopping tomorrow. Neri nodded and accepted the slice he offered. She examined it closely before taking a small bite. Her eyes widened. This contains an excessive amount of sodium and fat, she observed, then took another bite. It is surprisingly pleasant. Han couldn't help smiling. First thing we have in common, we both like pizza. They ate in awkward silence for a while. Han had so many questions but didn't know where to start. Finally, Neri spoke. Your dwelling is quite primitive by Lumen standards, she said, then quickly added, I apologize if that sounds judgmental. I'm trying to understand your living conditions. No offense taken, Han replied. Most human homes don't have spaceships in the garage, if that's what you mean. My people abandoned individual transport vehicles centuries ago, Neri explained. She touched the wall. These structures use simple materials. On my world, buildings respond to inhabitants' needs and can reconfigure themselves. Han looked around his apartment with new eyes. Now I feel bad about my place. Do not, Neri said. I find it fascinating to experience how other species live. That is what cultural exchange truly means. Later, Han prepared the couch for himself, giving Neri his bedroom. She seemed puzzled by this arrangement. On my world, life partners share sleeping quarters, she noted. Han felt his face grow warm. We're not really married, though. I mean, we just met today because my grandfather had a weird idea. Neri nodded. You are right. We should establish boundaries while determining our path forward. The next morning, Han woke to strange mechanical sounds. He rushed to the kitchen to find Neri had dismantled his microwave, its parts spread across the counter. What are you doing? He gasped. Neri looked up calmly. Your heating device was inefficient. I'm improving it to use less energy and cook more evenly. You can't just take apart my... Han stopped as Neri quickly reassembled the microwave, adding something small and silver from a pouch at her waist. Try it now, she suggested. Skeptically, Han put his coffee mug inside and pressed start. The machine hummed quietly, much quieter than before, and in 10 seconds, his coffee was perfectly heated. That would have taken a minute before, he said, amazed. Neri smiled slightly. On my world, children learn basic energy manipulation principles before they begin formal education. So you're basically a genius by human standards. Intelligence comparisons between species are meaningless, Neri replied. Your people excel at creative thinking and adaptation. My people are analytical and methodical, different strengths. Over breakfast, Han finally asked the question that had kept him awake. So what exactly does this marriage mean? What are we supposed to do now? Neri set down her fork. According to the agreement, we are to live together for 1 Earth year, sharing cultural knowledge. I am to observe human society and report back, while you learn about Lumen ways. And after the year, the arrangement can be dissolved if either party wishes, Neri explained, or extended if both agree. It was designed to create connections between our peoples while respecting individual autonomy. Han felt relief wash over him. So we're not really stuck together forever. That's good. You find the prospect of permanent association with me unpleasant? Neri asked, her silver eyes unreadable. No, I mean, I don't know you yet, Han stammered. And on Earth, people usually choose who they marry. It is similar for my people, normally, Neri said. My family's diplomatic status made this exception possible. I was told it would advance interspecies relations and protect certain technologies from being exploited. Han frowned. What technologies? What's really going on here? Before Neri could answer, Han's phone rang. It was his boss. Han, where are you? You're an hour late. The voice blared through the speaker. Han looked at the clock in panic. I'm so sorry. I'll be right there. He hung up and rushed to get ready for work. I completely forgot about my job. What am I going to do with you while I'm gone? I can't exactly introduce you as my alien wife. Neri touched the silver band on her wrist, and her appearance shimmered. Her blue skin took on a human tone, and her silver eyes darkened to brown. Only her unusual grace remained as a hint of her true nature. Will this suffice? She asked. Han stared in amazement. How did you do that? Simple light refraction technology, Neri explained. It only affects how others perceive me. I cannot maintain it indefinitely, but it allows me to move among humans when necessary. On the drive to Han's workplace, Neri gazed out the window, taking in the city with evident curiosity. "Your world is beautiful," she said softly. "So much water, so many different life forms. My home world is mostly desert now." Han glanced at her. "You miss it?" "Of course. But I volunteered for this mission because I wanted to see beyond our borders." She turned to him. "I may not have chosen you specifically, Han, but I did choose to come to Earth." As they pulled into the parking lot of the engineering firm where Han worked, he made a decision. "Look, this whole situation is crazy, but maybe we can make it work for both of us. You want to learn about Earth, and I admit I'm curious about your world too." Nari nodded. "A mutual cultural exchange, as intended." "Exactly," Han said. "We'll find a way to explain your presence to my friends and family. Maybe say you're a foreign exchange student staying with me. And meanwhile, we can figure out what my grandfather is really up to." "I believe he means well," Neri said. "But yes, there are larger forces at work here than a simple cultural exchange." As Han prepared to face his very normal human day with an alien disguised as his passenger, he couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the universe, and his grandfather, had in store for them. Han noticed the black car for the third day in a row. It was parked across the street from his apartment building, never in exactly the same spot, but always with the same two men inside. They wore dark suits and sunglasses, looking so much like movie spies that it would have been funny if it wasn't so concerning. "They're back," Han said, letting the curtain fall back into place. "Same guys as yesterday." Nari didn't look up from the small device she was working on at the kitchen table. After 2 weeks of living together, Han had gotten used to her dismantling and rebuilding various household items. His toaster now worked in 12 seconds, and his shower never ran out of hot water. "They've been watching since the day I arrived," she said calmly. "Your government is quite predictable." Han turned to her in surprise. "You knew. Why didn't you say anything?" Neri finally looked up, her silver eyes catching the afternoon light. She was no longer using her human disguise at home. "I assumed you were aware," she said. "Most developing worlds monitor potential extraterrestrial contact. It's a natural security response." Han sat across from her. "But how did they know about you?" "The only people who've seen you are my coworkers, and they think you're human." In answer, Neri raised her hand, and the coffee mug on the counter floated smoothly through the air to her. She caught it and took a sip. "Your species doesn't have telekinetic abilities," she said simply. Han stared at her. "You can move things with your mind. And you're just showing me now. All lumen can manipulate energy fields to some degree. I assumed your grandfather would have mentioned it." She looked at his shocked expression. "I see he did not." "No, he definitely did not mention that his alien daughter-in-law has superpowers." Han ran his hands through his hair. "What else can you do?" "It's not a superpower," Nari corrected. "It's basic physics, manipulating quantum entanglement to affect matter. Children on my world learn it alongside language." A sharp knock at the door interrupted them. Han froze, looking at Nari in alarm. "Are you expecting visitors?" she asked. "No." The knock came again, more insistent. Nari quickly activated her human disguise as Han approached the door. He peered through the peephole and stepped back in surprise. "It's my grandfather." He opened the door to find Ta looking worried, glancing over his shoulder. "May I come in?" "Quickly, please," the old man said, brushing past Han without waiting for an answer. Once inside, Ta embraced Han briefly, then nodded to Nari. "I see you two are getting along." "Good. We have a problem." "We have several problems," Han countered. "Starting with you dropping an alien in my lap and disappearing for 2 weeks. I've been monitoring the situation," Ta said, moving to the window and peeking out. "As I suspected, certain factions have taken an interest in Nari's presence." "You mean the men in the car outside?" Han asked. "What do they want?" Tay turned to face them both. "To put it simply, they want what Nari represents, advanced technology. The telekinetic abilities of the Lumen people are particularly interesting to military researchers." Nari's expression hardened. Is that why I was sent here? As bait? Not bait, Ta corrected. A test. The galactic confluence needed to understand how Earth authorities would respond to limited contact. Would they approach with diplomacy or attempt to seize advantages by force? So you used us as an experiment. Han felt anger rising. You put Nari in danger and didn't even warn us. Ta sighed heavily. I needed genuine reactions from both of you. If you had known the true purpose, you might have behaved differently. He looked at Nari. Your family agreed to this approach. They believe Earth has potential, but needs guidance. Nari stood very still. My parents said I was here as a cultural ambassador. You are, Tai assured her, but with a more specific purpose than you realized. The confluence has been watching Earth for centuries. Some member species believe humans are too aggressive for inclusion in galactic society. Others, like the Lumen, see promise in your adaptability and creativity. Han sat down, trying to process this information. So this fake marriage was just a cover story to see if humans would try to capture and study Nari. It's not entirely fake, Ta said. Cultural exchange marriages have been used throughout the confluence to build bonds between species. But yes, this particular arrangement had additional purposes, such as, Nari asked, to determine if Earth is ready for the next step. Ta pulled a small crystal device from his pocket, similar to the one he had given Han. The confluence is divided on whether to offer Earth provisional membership or to quarantine your solar system for another century. Han stared at his grandfather. And our little domestic experiment affects this decision how exactly? Because you, Han, represent humanity's potential reaction to alien contact. And so far, you've exceeded expectations. Ta smiled proudly. You've shown curiosity rather than fear, respect rather than exploitation. He looked at Nari. And you've confirmed that meaningful connections can form across species barriers. Nari shook her head. You make it sound as if we had a choice in this arrangement. You've both had choices every day, Tai countered. Han could have reported your presence to authorities. You could have used your abilities to escape or control them. Instead, you've chosen cooperation and mutual respect. A sudden flash of light outside the window interrupted them. Tai rushed to look outside, his expression grim. They're getting bolder, he muttered. That was a scan beam. They're trying to detect non-human technology. Will it find anything? Han asked. Nari touched the silver band on her wrist. My presence modifier, several tools I've brought, and the improvements I've made to your devices. Yes, a thorough scan would detect them. Tai turned back to them. We need to move you both to safety. The observatory has shielding that can block their scans. Wait, Han protested. You want us to run. Why not just explain the situation to them? Because the people watching your apartment don't represent all of Earth's governments, Tai explained. They're a private organization with military connections, seeking technological advantages. If they capture Nari, they won't alert world leaders. They'll study her in secret. Han looked at Nari, suddenly protective. Then we'll go. Now. As they gathered a few essentials, Han noticed Nari placing a small crystal similar to his grandfather's into her pocket. What's that? He asked. A recording device, she answered quietly. I've been documenting my observations of human behavior. She hesitated, including yours. Their eyes met, and Han realized there was much more to learn about his alien wife and the true agenda behind her arrival on Earth. But one thing was becoming clear. Whatever game his grandfather was playing, the stakes were far higher than a simple cultural exchange. The observatory looked different at night. Han stood at the large window, watching the stars while Nari and his grandfather worked on reinforcing the building's shields. It had been 3 days since they fled his apartment, 3 days of learning more about the universe than he had ever imagined possible. You're quiet tonight, Nari said, joining him by the window. In the dim light, her blue skin looked almost purple, and her silver eyes reflected the stars. Just thinking about how much has changed, Han replied. Last month I was an ordinary engineer with an ordinary life. Now I'm hiding in an observatory with an alien and my supposedly dead grandfather, while mysterious agents hunt us down. Neri smiled slightly. If it helps, this is not a typical experience for Lumen citizens either. Han couldn't help laughing. Over the past weeks, he had discovered Neri had a subtle sense of humor beneath her formal exterior. It was one of many things he was learning to appreciate about her. "There's something I've been wanting to share with you," Han said suddenly. He walked to his backpack and pulled out a small cooler. "I've been saving this for a special occasion, but considering we might be captured by shadowy government forces tomorrow, tonight seems good enough." He opened the cooler to reveal a container of ice cream. Neri looked at it curiously. "Frozen dairy product." "Not just any frozen dairy product," Han corrected, scooping some into 2 bowls. "Chocolate ice cream, a human delicacy." He handed her a bowl and watched as she took a small taste. Her silver eyes widened, and her expression transformed with surprise and delight. "This is..." She struggled to find words. "The sensation is both thermal and flavor-based, and it changes as it warms. Fascinating." Han grinned. "Just say you like it." "I like it," Neri admitted, taking another spoonful. "Very much." They sat together eating ice cream, and for a moment, Han could almost forget about the danger they were in. Then Tai entered the room, his expression serious. "The shields are holding, but they've located us," he announced. "I've detected scanning equipment on the road leading here. We have perhaps 12 hours before they make their move." Han set down his bowl. "Then what's our plan?" "I've sent a message to the Confluence representatives," Tai explained. "They're considering intervention, but they're reluctant. Direct contact with Earth authorities would be unprecedented. So we're on our own," Han concluded. Neri stood up. "Perhaps not entirely. Han, do you remember the engineering problem you were struggling with last week? The cooling system design?" Han nodded, confused by the change of subject. "The one for the new server facility. What about it?" "Show me your latest designs," she requested. Han retrieved his tablet and pulled up the schematics he'd been working on. For the past month, his firm had been trying to create a more efficient cooling system for a major tech company's data center, but they kept hitting roadblocks. Neri studied the designs for a few minutes, then began making adjustments. Her fingers moved across the screen with precision as she reconfigured several components. "This approach uses principles similar to how Lumen buildings regulate temperature," she explained. "Not advanced enough to raise suspicion, but more efficient than your current methods." Han watched in amazement as she transformed his adequate design into something elegant and innovative. "This is brilliant," he said. "It would cut energy use by at least 30%. "Precisely," Neri said. "And it demonstrates something important. How human creativity combined with Lumen knowledge creates unique solutions neither would develop alone." Tai approached, looking over their shoulders. "You understand now," he said quietly. "Understand what?" Han asked. "Why the cultural exchange matters," Tai explained. "It's not just about diplomacy or testing Earth's readiness. It's about what our species can accomplish together." A sudden alert sounded from one of Ta's devices. He checked it and smiled. "It appears we have a visitor." The main door of the observatory slid open, revealing a tall figure silhouetted against the night. As the figure stepped inside, Han gasped. It wasn't human. Its skin was a warm amber color, and its eyes were large and black, set in a face with delicate features. "I am June," the visitor announced in perfect English, "observer for the Council of Worlds. Elder Ta requested my presence." Neri bowed formally. "Observer June. The Council honors us." June inclined his head in acknowledgement. "The situation has escalated beyond a simple cultural exchange. The Council wishes to understand what is happening before making decisions regarding Earth's status." Ta stepped forward. "Observer, these humans who hunt us seek to acquire Lumen abilities for military applications. They represent a small faction, not Earth's majority. So you claim, Jun replied. Yet they operate with resources suggesting government support. Han found his voice. Not all humans think the same way. Most of us would want peaceful contact, not to capture and study visitors. Jun turned his large eyes toward Han. You are the human participant in the exchange bond. What is your assessment of your own kind? Han felt the weight of the question. How could he speak for all humanity? He looked at Nari, remembering their weeks together. The cultural misunderstandings, the shared discoveries, the growing trust between them. We're complicated, Han finally said. Humans can be fearful and selfish, yes, but we can also be curious and kind. We're not ready for everything the universe has to offer, but we'll never be ready if we're kept in isolation. Jun considered this. And what would you suggest as a path forward? Let us demonstrate what cooperation looks like, Han proposed. Nari and I have already created technology that benefits both our peoples without revealing advanced capabilities. We can show that partnerships work better than exploitation. Nari stepped closer to Han. I agree, and I request permission to continue the exchange bond with Han. There is still much to learn from each other. Han looked at her in surprise. After everything that had happened, she wanted to maintain their arrangement. Jun seemed to notice their exchange. The Council observes that your bond appears to have developed beyond the formal parameters of the agreement. Han felt warmth rise to his face, but before he could respond, the observatory's alarm system activated again. They're here, Tai announced, checking the security feed. Multiple vehicles approaching from the east. Jun moved to the window. This presents an opportunity to observe human behavior directly. He turned to Han and Nari. What will you do now? Han reached for Nari's hand without thinking. We stand together. We show them that the future lies in cooperation, not capture. Nari's fingers intertwined with his. Together, then. As lights appeared on the road leading to the observatory, Han realized that what had begun as his grandfather's strange birthday gift had become something far more important, possibly the first real bridge between Earth and the stars. The lights of the approaching vehicles cut through the darkness, illuminating the observatory in harsh white beams. Han counted 4 SUVs coming up the winding road, their engines growling in the night silence. 7 minutes until they reach us, Tai announced, checking the small device. The shields will prevent them from scanning inside, but they'll likely attempt to enter by force. Jun, the amber-skinned council observer, watched with calm curiosity. This is a pivotal moment. Your response will influence the council's decision regarding Earth's status. Han looked at Nari, whose blue skin seemed to glow with inner light as she prepared herself. In the month since she had arrived in his life, she had transformed from an unwanted arrangement into someone he deeply cared for. I have an idea, Han said suddenly, but it requires trusting me completely. Nari nodded without hesitation. I do trust you. Han turned to his grandfather. Can you bring up communications with the approaching team? Tai raised an eyebrow, but moved to a control panel. I can broadcast to them. Yes, good. Han took a deep breath. Then let's invite them in. What? Ta looked shocked. They mean to capture Nari and study her technology. Exactly, Han said. So let's flip their expectations. Instead of hiding like something dangerous, we welcome them as honored guests. Nari understood immediately. A diplomatic approach rather than a defensive one. Jun observed with increasing interest. A bold strategy. Han nodded. Grandfather, when they arrive, open the door. I'll handle the rest. Minutes later, as armed men in tactical gear surrounded the observatory, Han stood calmly in the open doorway. Beside him stood Nari in her natural blue-skinned form, Tai in his confluence uniform, and Jun with his amber skin and large eyes. The leader of the tactical team lowered his weapon slightly, clearly surprised to find his targets waiting peacefully. My name is Han Thompson, Han called out confidently. I believe you're here to meet my wife and our guests. Please, come in. We've been expecting you. The team leader hesitated, then spoke into his radio. A moment later, a black car pulled up, and a woman in a dark suit stepped out. She appeared to be in her 50s, with short gray hair and a stern expression. "I am Director Lane," she announced, approaching cautiously. "Department of Special Scientific Research." Han extended his hand. "Welcome, Director. We're hosting the first official diplomatic meeting between Earth and representatives of the Galactic Confluence. Would you like some coffee? We also have ice cream." Director Lane's professional mask cracked slightly with confusion. This clearly wasn't the confrontation she had expected. Inside the observatory, Han had quickly arranged a makeshift meeting area. The director and two of her colleagues sat across from Han, Nari, Tai, and June. "Let me be direct," Director Lane said after the initial awkward introductions. "We detected non-terrestrial technology in beings. National security requires we understand any potential threats." "Completely understandable," Han replied. "Just as the Confluence needed to understand if Earth was ready for broader contact. It seems we've been investigating each other." Neri spoke up. "My presence here was part of a cultural exchange program. I've been learning about humans while sharing limited knowledge about my people." "Knowledge like telekinetic abilities?" Director Lane asked sharply. In response, Nari gently lifted her coffee cup with her mind, floating it to the director. "This ability is natural to my species, just as your vocal capabilities are natural to yours. It's not a weapon." Han pulled out his tablet. "What is valuable is what we can create together. Director, your department has been trying to solve energy efficiency problems in quantum computing, correct?" The director's eyes narrowed. "How do you know that?" "Public research grants," Han said smoothly. He showed her the cooling system design he and Neri had created. "This is what happens when human engineering meets lumen thermal regulation principles. It's not advanced alien technology. It's a partnership." As Director Lane studied the designs, her expression changed from suspicion to professional interest. "This could revolutionize data center efficiency," she admitted. "Exactly," Ta said. "The Confluence doesn't want to give Earth technology we're not ready for, but they are interested in partnership that allows both sides to advance naturally." June, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. "The Council of Worlds has been debating Earth's status for centuries. Some believe your species is too aggressive for inclusion. Others see potential. This interaction will help determine which assessment is correct." Director Lane set down the tablet. "So this was a test." "For both sides," Han confirmed. "Will humans try to capture and exploit alien visitors? Will the Confluence respect human sovereignty or treat us as primitives? The answers determine our future relationship." The conversation continued late into the night. By morning, a framework had been established. Limited cultural and scientific exchange would continue under careful supervision from both Earth authorities and Confluence representatives. The agreement would be kept confidential until human governments could be properly prepared for wider contact. As dawn broke, Han stood with Nari on the observatory's balcony, watching the sunrise. "Your approach was unexpected," she said. "Most species attempt to capture or hide from what they don't understand. You chose conversation." Han smiled. "Humans talk a lot. Sometimes it's actually useful." "The Council will be impressed," Nari noted. "Your actions may have accelerated Earth's timeline for inclusion by decades." "And what about us?" Han asked, turning to face her. "Our arrangement was supposed to be for 1 year. But after everything that's happened," Nari's silver eyes met his. "The formal exchange program has expanded beyond us now. We are free to choose our own path." "And if I want you to stay?" Han asked quietly. "Not because of any arrangement or diplomatic necessity, but because I've grown to care for you." Nari stepped closer. "Then I would tell you that Lumen people form bonds based on mutual respect and shared experiences, not predetermined arrangements. And we have certainly shared many experiences." Han reached for her hand. "So perhaps we should start again." not as an arranged diplomatic couple, but just as Han and Neri, figuring things out together. I would like that, Neri said, her fingers intertwining with his. Inside the observatory, Todd watched them with satisfaction while finalizing details with Director Lane and June. Your grandson has impressed the confluence, June observed. Few would have handled this situation with such wisdom. He takes after his grandfather, Ta said proudly. Director Lane signed the preliminary agreement. This is just the beginning of a very long process. Earth has much to learn. As do we all, Tay replied, looking out at Han and Neri silhouetted against the rising sun. But humanity has taken its first real step to the stars, not through conquest or fear, but through connection. And that makes all the difference. Your approach was unexpected, she said. Most species attempt to capture or hide from what they don't understand. You chose conversation. Han smiled. Humans talk a lot. Sometimes it's actually useful. The council will be impressed, Neri noted. Your actions may have accelerated Earth's timeline for inclusion by decades. And what about us? Han asked, turning to face her. Our arrangement was supposed to be for 1 year. But after everything that's happened, Neri's silver eyes met his. The formal exchange program has expanded beyond us now. We are free to choose our own path. And if I want you to stay, Han asked quietly. Not because of any arrangement or diplomatic necessity, but because I've grown to care for you. Neri stepped closer. Then I would tell you that Lumen people form bonds based on mutual respect and shared experiences, not predetermined arrangements. And we have certainly shared many experiences. Han reached for her hand. So perhaps we should start again. Not as an arranged diplomatic couple, but just as Han and Neri, figuring things out together. I would like that, Neri said, her fingers intertwining with his. Inside the observatory, Ty watched them with satisfaction while finalizing details with Director Lane and June. Your grandson has impressed the confluence, June observed. Few would have handled this situation with such wisdom. He takes after his grandfather, Ta said proudly. Director Lane signed the preliminary agreement. This is just the beginning of a very long process. Earth has much to learn. As do we all, Tay replied, looking out at Han and Neri silhouetted against the rising sun. But humanity has taken its first real step to the stars, not through conquest or fear, but through connection. And that makes all the difference.